Hello and welcome. My name is George Grant and I'm a GGS Pro Technical Specialist. Today we're going to be going over some procedures and chemical options that are related to end-of-season sanitation. We'll be discussing various pesticides during this presentation. It is the grower's responsibility to read and follow each pesticide's label language as it is the law. Now please note labels do change, sometimes unannounced, so be sure to reread your labels as you receive new chemical onto your property. Also, it's worth mentioning that there are some products that are not mentioned in this presentation that may be safe and effective for your needs. Now, if you've ever grown poinsettias, you know there's two most beautiful sights during the end of the fall season, and this is one of them. And this is the second. At some point, your greenhouse will be emptied out, and you want to make sure that it's as clean as possible going into the spring season. Interseason sanitation is incredibly important. However, it's sometimes overlooked by many growers. The big problem here is that any issue that we don't completely deal with at the end of one season, there's a good chance that it might end up being there in the beginning of the next season. So that's why we like to say start clean to stay clean. The typical first step of your end of season sanitation protocol is going to be getting your greenhouse quote unquote looking clean. Now, what does that mean? That means physically removing any objects we don't want in that greenhouse. So that could be leftover containers, soil, debris, replacing the ground cloth if needed, or drip lines, and also ultimately the weeds. Now, as you can see on the right, this greenhouse looks clean. However, there's going to be some chemical applications that need to be applied to make sure that it is actually clean and then stays clean. As far as herbicides are concerned, the major limitation here is that there's very few herbicides that are actually labeled correctly for greenhouse usage, even empty greenhouses. In this slide, we have various different herbicides that are appropriately labeled for greenhouse usage in the pre-emergent and post-emergent purposes. As we know for pre-emergent, these are herbicides that are typically applied before weeds are present, and then it basically prevents weeds from developing for typically a longer period of time compared to a post-emergent or a non-selective herbicide. Post-emergent herbicides are used when weeds are currently present and we need to kill them. These are broken down into burn downs and systemics. Burn downs are essentially going to kill the top portion of the plant or any portion of the plant that the chemical comes in contact with. There are a few systemics such as Roundup, Phenolane, Cheetah Pro that actually when you apply the chemical the top portion of the plant, it actually translocates all the way down to the root system and kills the plant entirely. It's important to use a combination of both these types of products if you're trying to clean up a greenhouse that has weeds currently in them and you want to prevent weeds for the next season. This photo sums up why it's very important to try to remove any physical debris as your first step within a sanitation protocol. As you can see, algae, biofilm, soil, or a combination of all three can build up and then harbor weeds, insects, and disease pests. Once we physically remove the larger items such as containers, labels, trays, and dead plants, and then also use the appropriate herbicide to deal with the current weed issues that are present, we then want to use a cleaning step. This cleaning step relies on chemicals called cleaners. Cleaners are typically made up of strong acids or bases in combination with detergents. This is going to help us remove things such as biofilm, algae, and mineral scale. Please note, these sort of things, without being removed, are going to harbor insect and diseases for the next season. Pace coins the term, always clean before disinfection. The reason for this is, without the cleaning step, our disinfection step that we're about to talk about isn't nearly as effective. Algae and biofilm are nuisances that every grower eventually deals with. Essentially, these exist wherever moisture is present, thus irrigation piping and lines are common areas where these proliferate. Without the proper chemical steps of a cleaning step and a sanitation step to completely remove all the sources of algae and biofilm, the algae and biofilm from the end of your one season will quickly be there and proliferate again when the start of the new season occurs. The cleaner we like to recommend for irrigation lines is something called Strip It Pro, which is an acid-based cleaner. The process of essentially cleaning your irrigation line should look like this. I want to basically shock my lines with this product, let it sit overnight, and then open my end lines and flush that solution out the end. This is very important because any algae or biofilm that has been broken up is going to be broken up into potentially larger chunks. If you don't open up your main lines, a lot of that kind of broken up material might end up being reclogged into your drippers. Once we've gone actually through a cleaning step, then we want to put through an actual disinfectant or sanitizer. The typical products we use here are Xylitol 2.0 and Sanidate 12.0. As you notice, Xylitol 2.0 and Sanidate 12.0 can actually be used when plants are present. Cleaners like Strip It Pro can never be used when plants are present because this would ultimately cause a phytotoxicity event. For hard surfaces such as sidewalls, walkways, underneath and on benches, we're going to be using the same sort of process where we use a cleaner and then a sanitizer. On this slide you have various different cleaners as well as sanitizers along with rates. If you should have any additional questions regarding rates, always feel free to reach out to GGS Pro. As Rick Yates said, even the best sanitizer will fail if the proper cleaning is not done first. I always like to mention the benefits of foaming technology. This has gained traction over the past several years and is continuing to still be adopted by growers today. Essentially, we have a foaming agent being mixed in with your cleaner or sanitizer. This allows your applicator to see exactly where they've been applying. It also allows them to apply it to vertical surfaces. Typically, if we apply something without a foam sort of carrier, it can drip down very quickly. However, with a foam carrier, it stays on that surface, even vertical surfaces, for a much longer period of time. Contact time is incredibly important when it comes to cleaning and sanitation. I'm going to round this presentation up by talking about something that growers may or may have not done in the past. However, due to supply chain issues, a lot of growers are considering to reuse flats, trays, and containers. This is an important plant input, and if you're going to reuse them, the proper sanitation steps should go into effect. I'll give you an example. So at the bottom here, we see 2 trays of pansies. On the left, this tray unfortunately had the Labiopsis in the previous pansy crop, which is a common issue for pansies. It did not go through the proper sanitation steps, and thus the Labiopsis actually was still there present on the tray when it was replanted. On the right, same sort of situation. However, that tray did go through the proper cleaning and sanitation steps, and thus the Labiopsis residual was not there to affect the pansies. Now, this is essentially a 4-step process. We're going to go through a cleaner, we're going to rinse it, we're going to use a sanitizer, and we're going to let the material dry. Okay, well, when it comes to cleaning and sanitizing, just like other hard surfaces and irrigation lines, contact time is really important. Most of these things when we're going to be cleaning or sanitizing flats and trays and containers is we're typically dipping it into a solution. In this table, as you can see here, we give you the amount of duration that this should occur as well as the rate. It can also be applied as a spray. Now, the rinse step is very important for after the cleaner because most cleaners, if they're let to dry, they actually leave a residue on the hard surface compared to most sanitizers that actually can be left to dry on the hard surface. Thank you for your time today. If you should have any questions related to the material covered in this presentation, please feel free to reach out to your local Griffin sales representative or the GGS Pro team. You can reach out to GGS Pro using the email address or the 800 and extension number listed on the slide. Also, we sincerely value any input or recommendations for future videos, so please feel free to send us your ideas as they come up. Thank you.